Hello everybody and welcome back. It is Michael from Hollowed Thrills, back from another video, and today we are on day 2 of our California trip for haunt season, and today we are here at Knott's Berry Farm. Now you might be thinking, Michael, it's daytime out. Knott's Scary Farm during the day? I don't know how that's gonna happen, but actually we're here super early because we got passes for the Beyond the Fog tour, which is a first-year event for Knott's Berry Farm, where they actually take you behind the scenes of certain attractions for Scary Farm. Now, you might have seen our little buddy Rob back there from the Howling Hour. He's going to be joining us today as well, but this is just one of like 3 videos I'm filming today. We're doing daytime stuff, we're doing this Behind the Fog tour, and we're also doing Scary Farm tonight. So look out for all 3 of those videos, but this one's our first one today. But before we get into it, please make sure you're subscribed and have those bell notifications turned on to get notified whenever I post a video. And also make sure you're following me on both Instagram and Twitter. The links for both of those are down in the description below. Now let's head in. So where you want to go if you book the Beyond the Fog tour is down there is the like little part between the gift shop and the Miss Knott's chicken restaurant. You go down here by Build-A-Bear, and then they have signs marking the entire thing, but then you go down here by Ghost Rider and hang a left, and then there's a door that has a sign right next to it that you would go in.
Now, almost every single building inside of Ghost Town is an actual building from a real ghost town somewhere in America. We'll go over that more later, okay? But that's the brief history of how all of this got started. Haunt started in 1973, and so far we've had 49 haunt seasons. Next year will be our 50th. We had to skip 1 year for a reason. We were all there, okay? We were all there. We know why we had to skip a year. But that's essentially how all of this got started. One intuitive man took one strain of brand new berries from a man named Rudolph Boysen, who was a little impatient, so that's why the boysenberry didn't really grow for him. Walter Knott knew that, okay, you got to give berries a little more time. Some berries take sometimes years to actually bear fruit. So Walter was more patient, and after about a year's worth of tender care, the berry plants provided themselves a delicious berry. Does anybody actually know what a boysenberry is a crossbreed of? Does anybody know? Raspberry, blackberry, and a loganberry. A triple crossbreed, yeah. That's why they're so delicious. That's why they're big, delicious. Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start moving into the park.
All right, so we're heading into the park now to hit up our first couple attractions, and we're actually going through all of the haunted attractions for Scary Farm. So feature editing Michael here. I have no idea what I'm talking about in this clip. We actually are only going through 3 of the attractions, 3 of the haunted houses. So just ignore what I'm saying right here.
It wasn't until about 1975 that we had our first ever street monster. One monster basically got locked out of his boo hole, and essentially they said, just walk around, do stuff. And from there, we had the beginnings of what we know today as haunt. Very, very simple beginnings, but it was super effective. We knew that if you set anything up for Halloween, people just might show up. And that year, we didn't actually have a haunt on Halloween. We had it the weekend before Halloween in 1973, because I believe Halloween was on a Wednesday that year. So that one was really interesting for me.
So I believe our first house that we're gonna walk through is the Depths.
Now this maze, this backstory behind this maze is simply a small town called Amity, okay? It's a reference to, of course, Jaws. The small town is a mining town, fairly wealthy. One weekend, basically all the men would go out and come back for the weekend. Well, one weekend the men didn't show back up, and more men started disappearing as they went out to mine more. And so there became a mystery of the town. All the men, the brothers, the cousins, the uncles, the fathers, the grandfathers, disappearing. Now it is your job to go find out why they're disappearing. You have to go into the depths to find out what's causing all the miners to disappear. And so right here, we have our sea captain who will be talking during the opening of the maze, and he'll be basically telling you the same story that I'm telling you. Now we also have a shark right here. It's a prop that we had years ago in the boardwalk area. The shark didn't have such dramatic teeth, but this is also a bit of our homage to the old shark that was hanging at Universal Studios, the Jaws prop. This is a bit of an homage to that. We here at Knott's Berry Farm, we love movies, and Jaws is one of our favorite movies, and that's why we named this place Amity Cove.
Hi
everybody go ahead into the sleeping quarters. Go ahead and wait right there for me. That particular lamp right there came from the Calico Mine Ride, as well as this one right here. These are some of the old lamps that were sitting inside of the Mine Ride. Any pickaxes, shovels, and things like that you see in here usually came from the Mine Ride before its restoration in 2014. We have some of our boiler room pieces right here. This one, I believe, came from the actual Timber Mountain Log Ride. And this cot right here was used in, I believe, Asylum Lockdown. So we have a few Easter eggs in here and a few nods to our attractions and some of our other mazes that we've had back here.
Look at the big prop skeleton. That's interesting. Whoa.
That's one of the ways the monsters are able to slip in and out of the
And they
rooms.
have like, I guess a scare actor would be up there reaching through. That's awesome. And a big hull of a ship there. I love the mine.
Careful, it's active. Now when the sound effects and the lights are all going, this is a really,
Whoa, look at this, man. This room is awesome looking.
We have a few of our fog machines out right there. We have to keep them slightly covered. Fog machines do produce a lot of heat, so we can't keep them covered all the way. Even the fog machine boxes out on Ghost Town Street, those have superb vents in them, so that way they don't overheat too much. Now, the reason why the fog in this room stays right around here is because we actually, on Ghost Town Streets, we have to heat the fog to get it to be more hazy and float out into the air. This fog isn't heated as much, so that way the fog still rises, but just enough. So that way it's not flying in your face and you can't see anything. And also, the effect when people have ground fog, that's when the fog is chilled before it comes out of the nozzle. So there are various ways you can heat fog that'll give you a different effect every single time. You've got haze, you've got mid fog, and you've got floor fog. And so that's a simple effect we have. Now right here we have our first official monster victim of this maze. This creature is not quite a siren, not a vampire or anything like that, but this is a warning to the other creatures of the sea that what lies in the depths won't hesitate to destroy you. And this anchor is supposed to be the anchor from the sunken ship we just walked out of. But that's a nice little nod to how dangerous these creatures are. Now, if you take a look at this right here, this is a good homage to one of our favorite films here at Knott's Berry Farm, Indiana Jones, and the Temple of Doom. We have a few homages of that in here. Projection mapping, so they can look around the room.
Whoa. This is cool. Yeah, all of these tentacles are animatronics. That is awesome. Release the Kraken.
Yes, the eyes have projection mapping.
That is awesome looking.
Steven Spielberg felt it necessary to name the shark after his lawyer. His lawyer's name was, of course, Leonard. No, I'm just kidding. His lawyer's name was Bruce. So, as an homage to that, and as the town is called Amity Cove, we had to have another homage to Jaws. Now, this is an animatronic. He'll actually slide out. This whole section will be filled with smoke. Bruce will slide out and start chomping at you. Now, this was an effect that we built here as well. Someone sculpted Bruce, cast him, covered him in a nice shiny lacquer, and basically doused him in all kinds of silicone blood. It's all hangy and drippy and nasty. And even sometimes when you come out, you'll have a small water effect that'll make you go, ooh, what's on me? Get it off. So Bruce is one of our favorite animatronics here. He's my favorite animatronic here, at least. Hopefully when they're all done with Bruce, I can take him home with me. Dark entities, everybody. Now, there's a reference to me in this maze. There's a reference. This is actually a new one, P425. It's actually got the names of all of our tour guides and our director for this, Jeff Tucker. If anybody is a real huge fan of Haunt, you know who Jeff Tucker is. So the storyline behind this maze, and see, the screams are already happening. They're like, no, don't tell us. It's too scary. So this maze is created by Gus Kruger. The storyline behind this maze is you're on a spaceship called the Shroud, and they come across an alien artifact. Now, of course, scientists don't science when they're in space, because nobody can hear you scream when you're in space. So the first thing they do is come into direct contact with this alien artifact. Then it infects them and mutates their genes. And unfortunately, the entire crew is infected, and you are sent into space through a sort of portal hole into the Shroud spaceship to try to save as many crew members as you can. Because this is a haunted maze, unfortunately that doesn't happen. Now you're trying to save yourselves and make it back to Earth while blowing up the Shroud to make sure that no one else has to suffer with this horrible fate. So we're going to take a step into Dark Entities. Now, like, once again, I'll say it is a bloodier maze than the Depths is. So if anybody can't stand the sight of literally guts hanging out of people, then this may not be the one for you. The story behind this interesting gentleman right here is that he's a robot who hates his purpose. So he literally, if you walk through here and you listen carefully, you will hear him talking about how much he hates his job. So he's a robot who hates his sole purpose of existence. And if you even come past any of these, you'll look and see there are names of creative directors, designers, set dressers on all of these. And I believe there is a celebrity name on one of these. I can never remember which one. Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme. So an interesting thing about how we make props like this, sometimes we'll take molds of our actors or even anybody who volunteers to do it. Sometimes it's even our technical staff, even people from our offices who do all the paperwork. We'll say, hey, do you want to be a dummy in one of the mazes? And sometimes they'll go, I'll pass. And then other times they'll go, yeah, dude, yeah, definitely. Turn me into a dummy and rip me apart. So that's what we'll do with some of these. That's why they look so realistic. They're actually based on an actual face. Now, I don't know whose face this actually is, but whoever it was did at least a chest up casting. The rest of it is actually from another dummy. But all of the bones and skeleton and all of that kind of stuff, this is all a special sort of silicone rubber that we paint this sort of wet blood-looking type of texture. And essentially it gives you the feeling that this is always gooey and this is fresh and you're in trouble. Now when we have guts and stuff like this is actually the same material that we use to paint him like this, but this is actually rope that we just painted to look like that. It looks gooey, it looks nasty. It's just rope, literally twine. And that's just a quick little effect that we have. We have some of these bugs in here from some of our other mazes or even some projects that didn't even make it all the way through. This particular effect is inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing. Also, this whole scene is a grand homage to the Alien franchise. The first Alien film, when the aliens start bursting out of people's chests, that all happened in the dining room. So this is the homage to that. We also have some other small little creatures here. Some small, just weird little creatures that they spattered around the maze because they were just, we had extra body parts laying together, so we decided to cover them in gelatin molds and turn them into freaks of nature. This is also right here a reference to I can't remember 2049. I can never remember the name of this. I've seen the movie a billion times. Harrison Ford.
Blade Runner?
Yes, Blade Runner. Oh. I can never remember the name. I can talk about it all day long, but whenever it comes down to looking at the acronym and going, what is that again? Burn notice? Oh, Blade Runner. Yeah, and it also references its release date. Now, once again, if anybody wants to take any pictures in this room, feel free. Feel free. Now, this room is the goriest room in the maze, and this particular creature is also animated right here. You've got some mutant alien baby things behind you, but I think the funniest thing about this room, if you can think of anything in this room being funny, is that this particular android, in the beginning of the maze, the first android hates its purpose. This android is endlessly optimistic. You can hear this android going, it's okay, you'll be all right, we'll fix this. And I just think that's hilarious that this android, even though this person there's no saving him, the android's like, I think it's just a flesh wound. You'll be fine. That'll just scare people. Now this particular puppet's on a gimbal, so I can move it around to all three of the boo holes. And this puppet was actually used first, I believe, in Dominion of the Damned. It's actually another creature that was an animatronic that they turned into a puppet. Why would you touch that with your bare hands? I will never know.
He's got gloves on.
It still did something to him. Why he wouldn't have his mask on or anything like that. But he is patient zero. And this is what a fully mutated human being will eventually look like. The captain and the co-pilot are not doing so well. This is also a photo op space. If anybody wants to take any photos in the captain's chair, please be my guest. But this particular room has some very, very good references to not only Gus, but his family history. Right here, instead of having a HAL 5000 or a HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, we have a Gus 5000 right there. This room also has a few references to Gus's father. Gus's father would write short stories for a science fiction horror magazine that he created. And Gus's father also helped start the first Comic-Con. So this whole room is filled with references to that, with there being references to just sci-fi and space altogether. That we can put in these mazes. Go on in. If there's anything we can put in these mazes, we do. We've made it back to Earth. We think we've saved the day, but unfortunately, we have not. Oh my God! We have not saved the day, and we called this animatronic because we all love this guy so much. We all call him Cutie. He is an animatronic. All he does is he swings his arm forward, and that's about it. But there'll be flashing lights, smoke effects, and some water blasting effects that'll make it look like he's moving much faster than he is. When in reality, all he's doing is and just swinging his head back and forth. That's it. Very simple but very effective animatronic technique. This maze is, like I said, the one that organically came up around the park. See, Sarah Marshall is the Green Witch, and her transformation into the Green Witch cursed the people of Calico. And you get to walk through seeing her trial as she's condemned for the crime of witchcraft in the Old West. And so, as she's being condemned for the crime of witchcraft, she then begins her transformation from a beautiful woman to the terrible Green Witch, and she curses the people of Calico that in the bathing of the moonlight they will turn into the monsters that they truly are on the inside. The dead will rise from Boot Hill, and the town of Calico streets will run red with blood and be choked by the smoke and fog of the underworld. That is the story of the Green Witch, Sarah Marshall, and that's why Haunt is always connected in some way, shape, or form back to her story. And we're also going to have a little nod to our newest maze, Grimoire, in there.
Oh, there he is.
Where you belong.
Friends, Romans, tour guests, lend me your ears. This is where they condemned Sarah Marshall to the hangman's noose. So this is our first room to simulate the Calico Courthouse that we have down the way. Judge Roy Beans. Now, Judge Roy Beans is one of our small little factions that basically, if you're a huge fan of Knott, you know exactly where Judge Roy Beans is. It's right next to the Stagecoach Ride. We have some references to the Stagecoach Ride in here. That right there is actually a Stagecoach costume. Our Stagecoach operators are given that costume right there. We also have a few characters in here that are dressed. This costume in particular, you don't see out until Christmas time. And that's a small nod to the fact that this room becomes Santa's cabin in Christmas time. Just a small little sort of weird nod to that.
Put Santa on trial?
Yeah, of course, all the time. He's breaking into all these people's houses.
Wow. That's right.
Yeah, it's not cool, man. At least he's leaving presents. But he's eating my cookies. I don't agree to that.
So in these next two rooms, you can see this first room has the bank vault and the prison area where you have the bars that a scare actor can actually like move and slam. And the next room has this little schoolhouse scene where you can see the Green Witch actually hung the teacher. It was a pretty gruesome scene actually, and all the children in the room had their eyes like plucked out of their skull.
Now this is a Pepper's Ghost effect, and there is a LED screen, a plasma screen right up here that'll shine down through the glass. Now we have one other Pepper's Ghost effect. Well, we had two other Pepper's Ghost effects in the park. We have the Undertaker's office, which is over by Fireman's Barbecue, and we also had the Mystery Lodge. The most famous Pepper's Ghost effect around today in Southern California is, of course, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. Oh, I almost choked saying that. So we have that effect right there, and it'll be the Ghost Town Bride. She'll appear above the coffin, and she'll look like she's crawling towards you. The streets. This is supposed to be the Calico Saloon. Now they're not all one-to-one size recreations, but they're very impressive. And so we'll have water effects, sound like thunder, lightning, and flashing lights. And in these windows, we will have projections of Calico monsters fighting in a saloon fight. Now this is a real carriage that we made for, this is a real carriage that we built for Dominion of the Damned a few years ago. We got plenty of use out of it for the last few years, and then we decided to bring it right on back for Origins. It is not carved here at the park. It is a real pumpkin. Real pumpkins can actually stay alive for up to a year as long as you don't carve them. So some of our pumpkins aren't saved over from last year. We typically just buy a bunch of brand new pumpkins, but we buy at least, I'd say, over 2,000 pumpkins every single year just to decorate Ghost Town alone. The rest of the park requires thousands more. From varying sizes, from the very small, I think some of our biggest pumpkins weigh well over 500 pounds. And right here we have an homage to our first haunt host, Seymour. Now that creature right there is actually a recast of an original haunt monster mold that we had laying in the storage area. Now you can still see the big creature roaming around haunt, but it's a more updated mold for the monster. We recasted that from the original mold. Now all of these skeletons and gooey things you can see in here, they're actually from a maze we used to have where Pumpkin Eater is today, called Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse was just sort of like, has anybody ever seen Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Yeah. We've all seen it, right? Slaughterhouse was kind of a big homage to that sort of hillbilly barbecue. We find people, we catch them, we cut them up, and we serve them to other people. It's sort of a modern day Texas Sweeney Todd. That's the way I like to think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I like to add a little more art to it. I'm like, no, it's just like Sweeney Todd. Yeah. Now the Catawampus, we walked by it earlier. I didn't point it out, unfortunately. But the Catawampus is one of our animals that Walter Knott created as sort of his weird wood and animals. The Catawampus is made out of a few old cactus spines, an old log, and some longhorn horns. And it moves every, I believe, 30 seconds or so. There was only one Catawampus. Now officially there was another Catawampus added in, I believe, 2018. And now we have our third Catawampus in the park. And it's a killer Catawampus, and it's 7 feet tall. It's our version of Groot.
Outside of this park.
I know.
Live in person. Now, it is inhabited by all of these static figures and a few actual live actors. Now, every single monster in this room is meant to represent an actual haunt monster that you can find out on the streets. So for the first time ever, there are some monsters that you will have doubles of in the park. That almost never happens. There are some creatures out there where another person has never, ever, ever played that character. Some of these monsters were created by the people who play them. So the makeup patterns, even the costumings were created by the people who play them. So whenever you see a very unique character out on Ghost Town streets, it's very likely that that person, that costume, that monster was their brainchild, and it is carried over into the Knott's Berry Farm lore for haunt. Now, the reason why we oftentimes in our mazes do our rocks like this, it's an homage to Bud Hurlbut, the creator of the Calico Mine Ride and the Timber Mountain Log Ride. It keeps all the mazes consistent with the aesthetic of the park. With our two attractions, the Mine Ride and the Log Ride, they use chicken wire and gunite to create the effect of the rocks being jagged and smooth in certain places. In nature, you don't really find a whole lot of rocks like this unless there's a lot of water in an area. Ghost Town is obviously a desert, so you wouldn't have a whole lot of rocks like this. But these are made out of foam, chicken wire, and just a lacquer paint that basically hardens on the outside, so you just can't punch through these things, as people have attempted to do. All the paint was fresh last night. Now people have already started chipping at them. Now, has anybody gotten to go through Grimoire yet? I know a few of you. Yes, this is the Grimoire. You saw it first last year in Invitation to Terror. We have brought it here to ask the question, where is Sarah Marshall getting her power from? Is she using the Grimoire to curse the rest of Calico, or is the Grimoire using her? Is the Grimoire really connected to her that much, or is the Grimoire connected to the rest of Knott's Scary Farm as its own little pocketed universe, sort of a 7 layers of hell thing? Knott's Scary Farm have a weird history with giant hands. We have a lot of mazes and attractions that involve giant hands. This one is a recast from a attraction called Black Widow's Cavern, where we would have a giant hand slowly creep out and sort of reach out for the passengers on the Mine Ride train. Now that hand was made completely out of polyurethane and styrofoam. So unfortunately, a guest got a little too handsy, smacked the hand, smacked off the pinky finger. And then they were able to reattach it after a couple days, and then someone then smacked off the middle finger. Then after a couple days, someone smacked off the index finger. Pretty soon, the hand was just fingerless. So we would just have a nub reaching out to people after a couple days. So that hand actually still exists. That hand got moved over to Dark Ride. And the hands that have all the knives sticking out of it, that's where they got some of the inspiration for that. Because people just kept knocking fingers off of the hands. We've always had just a weird fascination with this kind of stuff. So as you walk past this giant effect, it'll reach out and grab you. Now this one's not made out of styrofoam and polyurethane. This one's made out of foam and rubber and latex. So even if it does make contact with you, it's soft. It's not going to hurt you.
All right, so we just had like a little presentation showing off other houses that we're not going to be able to go through for this daytime event. But I mean, looking at just what goes into this whole event is just so interesting. And just, I mean, the fact that they've been doing it for 49 going on 50 years next year, it just shows that what works and what doesn't, and they have figured that out over the last 49 years. I'm super excited to check out this event tonight for the first time and go through those houses that we went through today with scare actors, with the lighting and everything working. It's going to be fun. And the last thing we receive before we head out for the end of the tour is a Beyond the Fog pin, specifically made for this tour. You can only get it if you're on the tour. Super cool. And that is it. That's our Behind the Fog tour for Knott's Scary Farm. I'm sorry this is a little bit of a different video. It's more of our tour guide talking than me talking, but I really just wanted to show you guys like what you can expect if you're coming on this tour and if it's really worth it for you. You can make your own opinion based on whether it's worth it, but personally for me, I thought this tour was fantastic. Our tour guide was amazing. He was so like knowledgeable and so fun, made jokes the entire time. I really enjoyed that entire experience and would do it again if I could, but I'm only here for a certain period of time, so we just gotta do the best we can. I had a really fun time though today. Got our pin, got our lanyard, got our little card. It was super cool to see all of these attractions during the day before I go through them tonight. Please make sure you're subscribed, have those bell notifications turned on, like, comment, do all that kind of stuff. But as always, for Hallowed Thrills, I've been Michael, giving you the all clear, and all clear means you are out of here. See you guys next time.